I'm Priscilla Barrera with the Investing News Network, and here with me today is Anton Berlin, Marketing Director of Nornickel. Anton, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we're here at the Cathodes conference in California. How are you finding the event so far? Is there a lot of interest in nickel?
It's a great event, and there's a great collection of people. And yes, there's a very big interest for the supply chain, and that includes nickel, cobalt, and lithium.
Right, and today you gave a presentation about supplying nickel-intensive cathode chemistries. What would you say is the biggest challenge for the nickel market to do that?
Well, our biggest challenge is that in order to sustain and grow production, we need to make investment, but the current price levels are not particularly exciting to do that, and we're talking about billions of dollars investment and many years of payback.
And what is your current outlook for nickel demand, maybe in general, and then specifically from the battery sector in the next few years?
We are confident that nickel consumption will continue to grow in foreseeable future, and it will be driven both by the batteries, which is obviously the sort of hype part of the market, as well as traditional uses like stainless steel, alloys, plating. We're looking at very high growth numbers in the battery sector, but obviously it's starting from a very low base. But for the next few years, we're looking at more than 20% per annum growth. If we look at the overall nickel consumption, it's a more modest numbers, say in the range of 4 to 7% annually.
Right. And in terms of prices, have nickel prices performed as you expected at the end of last year, this year?
Oh, yes, we did expect that, or rather I should change this. We didn't expect a huge increase in nickel prices. When they were going up end of 2017, this did look a bit as an overreaction from the financial market, because fundamentally things have not really changed. And although batteries will become the second biggest use for nickel, it still will take a few years before this kicks in. So in our view, the market was overreacting. The current nickel market is in deficit, meaning that we do consume globally more than there's being produced, but there are stockpiles which cover for the deficit, so it doesn't really give enough room for growth in prices.
And some market watchers have suggested we might see two different prices for nickel in the future due to this battery demand. What is your opinion on that?
I think we can probably say we're one of the first to speak about this publicly, that we expect the market might split into batteries and stainless category and have a different price discovery mechanism, because they are not truly overlapping. The forms of nickel used in those industries, they do not overlap. So it's a possibility, and we can see this with some of other commodities when you have different sub-markets within a single commodity that have a different price dynamics and different benchmarks.
And just a couple of days ago, your company signed an agreement with BASF to meet this increasing demand from the battery sector. What does this deal mean for your company and maybe for battery manufacturing in Europe in general?
Well, for the European manufacturing, this is a source of locally produced precursors that are later converted into cathode active material that becomes part of the battery. For us, it's an opportunity to build a closer relationship with the battery sector, because obviously we're very much upstream from the actual battery production.
Right. And do you expect to sign any more of these deals in the future with maybe battery or automakers? Is that part of your ongoing strategy?
Well, our strategy has been very consistent. We try to structure long-term deals with strategic anchor customers, so BASF is obviously one of them. And we have other customers in other sectors, and yes, we would continue that.
Right, and my last question for you today, Anton. Looking at the nickel supply-demand dynamics from the battery sector, what would you say investors should pay attention to? Are there any factors that could impact the demand from that market?
Well, yes, the electric vehicles demand has a number of drivers that affect it. One is the government regulation and stimulus, because in many countries there are economic benefits offered to people purchasing electric vehicles. Obviously, this is a great support. On the other hand, if you look at the environmental regulation, There are targets that need to be met, and electric vehicles are becoming very important in meeting those targets, especially the CO2 emissions. And I think that the changes in government policy are one of the biggest sort of visible indicators of what will happen in the future.
All right, and Anton, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.